everyone, welcome to another episode of Time About the Movies Flashback. We're flashing back today to June 3rd, 1988, and we got three films to look at today. A couple of notable movies here as we come to the beginning of the summer movie season of 1988, basically. But let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and it's literally the biggest new release of the weekend. It's literally called Big.
Big. Sweetheart, 7:30, are you up? Josh!
20th Century Fox presents Tom Hanks. Big.
I turned into a grown-up, Mom. I made this wish on a machine, and they turned me into a grown-up.
So now what?
You get a job.
I cannot get a job. I play with all of this stuff, and then I tell them what I think.
Can they pay you for that? Suckers!
Vice President, he's only been here a week.
See that girl over there in the red? Showed up her legs were any so tight, you'll be begging for mercy.
Well, I'll stay away from her then.
I loved your ideas on the squeezy doll line.
Thanks.
What were you like when you were younger?
Go, well, I wasn't much different. Eject your seat!
Who are you?
I'm his girlfriend. I want to spend the night.
You mean sleep over?
Yeah.
Okay. But I get to be on top.
What is so special about Basket?
He's a grown-up.
How do I feel about what?
How do you feel about me?
You're only young once.
This is important!
I'm your best friend. What's more important than that, huh?
But for Josh,
I miss my family, Susan, and I want to go home.
Oh my God, you're married.
it just might last a lifetime. You'll never forget Tom Hanks.
Beluga.
In Big.
Pretty much explains what the plot is right there. You have Tom Hanks, who basically starts off as a kid. He sees this machine at this carnival, and he thinks he's too short to do anything, so he goes to the thing, he puts a coin in there, and he says, you know, make your wish, and he says, I wish I was big, and then the next day he becomes Tom Hanks, and he basically rushed out of his house and has to basically get a job in order to, you know, live pretty much, and he essentially becomes a hotshot at FAO Schwartz, and basically becomes this. Basically, the story is him enjoying the good life as an adult, and then realizing that he wants to get back to being a kid again. And of course, the big thing about this movie is Tom Hanks, which he'd already been an established star before this, but this was the movie that really put him over the top and made him the major draw that he has been known to be ever since this movie came out. I mean, this was the movie that put him on the map. And this was the one that gave him his first Oscar nomination for Best Actor. I mean, there's not much more to say about this movie that hasn't already been said already. It's a classic movie. Directed by Penny Marshall, written by Gary Ross. And I did not know this. This was actually written by the sister of Steven Spielberg, Anne Spielberg, which, coincidentally, Spielberg was actually attached to direct the film, and he was going to do it with Harrison Ford as the character of Josh, but then he eventually decided to drop out after he gave birth to his son Max, or his wife at the time gave him birth to his son Max, and he was also working on Empire of the Sun. And it's funny looking back at some of the other people that they were considering for this. I'm looking at the names right now: Kevin Costner, Steve Guttenberg, a couple names that my son they were at the right age bracket at the time, but Warren Beatty, who was pretty old at that point, which really, I don't think would have worked out if you got him. Dennis Quaid, Matthew Modine, Albert Brooks, Jeff Bridges, John Travolta, Sean Penn, Gary Busey, Andy Garcia, Robert De Niro was at one point considered and I think he actually was cast at one point. But yeah, those pretty much basically just said that this would not have flown if this movie had gone at that level. But luckily they went with Tom Hanks, and hey, the results paid off big time. It was a massive hit at the box office. It was actually the first feature film directed by a woman to gross over $100 million, and it actually led to the span of, actually no, it was actually right in the middle of that span of like all these different like movies where people would change bodies a lot, like a Freaky Friday situation, because you had stuff like you had Dream a Little Dream, like Father Like Son, 18 Again, vice versa. This was kind of in that general bracket area, but this one is the one that actually did end up becoming the one that had the lasting legacy to it. And you can see why. It's a charming film. Tom Hanks sells the role very well. He's got a great cast to work around. Elizabeth Perkins is really good in the film. You actually do buy their chemistry, even though Tom Hanks is supposed to be a kid. And I do like the idea that Elizabeth Perkins is clearly trying to seduce him throughout the course of the movie. Like you see in the trailer there, the scene where, they're in the bunk beds and, like, he jumps on top of the bunk there. But one of my favorite scenes in the movie is where they're about to have sex. She's taking off her clothes and, like, she turns the light off and Tom Hanks basically decides, turns the light back on again. And she's just like, oh, you want the light on, huh? It's just like little moments like that, I think, do carry the charm of the movie. And they do make you forget kind of the iffiness about this movie. I was really afraid of where this movie was going to go the first time I saw this movie. The fact that, how are they going to make this work out in the end? And they do it pretty well. I think they do a pretty good job of handling this, and it's very well done. And like I said, the movie has an excellent cast to work with. Besides, Perkins, Robert Loggia is very good in the film. You see John Hurd, pre-Home Alone, Jarrett Rustin, pre-Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Mercedes Ruehl, John Lovitz, Deborah Jo Rupp's also in this as well. Not much more I could say about this movie that hasn't already been said. It's one that this is one that could have easily have been one of those things that would have been such a disaster if done badly, but it was perfected well. They got a great actor in Tom Hanks to make it work. He shows everybody that he's got the acting chops that he would later show down the road. A great script by Gary Ross and Ann Spielberg, and a great director like Penny Marshall. Everything just came together so well, and the movie still is a classic film even after all these years later. It's funny because this is another one of those ones that had one of those weird extended editions, like That Thing You Do, which we talked about before on another show. It's very weird. They had for some reason they decided to do these extended editions, like they add new stuff in here, and again, kind of like with That Thing You Do, adding more stuff to this movie really, I think, takes the charm out of the movie a little bit, because if you add the extra stuff in here, it's over 2 hours long, and this is just right at about 100 minutes, about an hour and a half, and I think that's a perfect amount of runtime for a movie like this. I think it works well enough as it is. That extended edition, I think, really is doing the film a major disservice by having that in there. Don't have the deleted scenes there as like a bonus feature on the DVD, that's fine, but don't put it back in the movie like that. I mean, seriously, but not much more I can say about this one. Big, it's a classic. If you haven't seen it already, do yourself a favor and watch it, man, because you'd be doing yourself a major disservice by not doing so. But I digress. Let's go ahead and move on to another comedy that came out this weekend. Chevy Chase starring in Funny Farm.
In the country, Chevy Chase ran after his dream. It caught up with him on the Funny Farm.
Mosquito.
And life on the farm was never so funny.
I have good news.
Chevy Chase,
We've decided to stay.
Funny Farm, rated PG. Starts Friday, June 3rd at a theater near you.
So the plot of this is that you have Chevy Chase and his wife, played by Madeline Smith Osborne. They buy a farm in Vermont, and they can't imagine the trouble that awaits them. Andy's quit his job as a sports journalist and is planning to use the peace and quiet of the country to write the great American novel. And from the moment the mover's truck gets lost with their furniture, though, there's little peace and less quiet. From a maniac mailman to a dead body buried in the garden, Andy is distracted by the town and its wacky inhabitants, and his efforts at a novel is mediocre at best, and he's threatened by Elizabeth's foray into writing, where she attempts a children's book. Can the farmer survive the townsfolk and each other? At the time, Chevy Chase was still a popular draw at the box office, and this was considered kind of a flop because I mean, for one thing, you're opening up against Big, and then you also have Crocodile Dundee too. But you have a summer where you have these classic movies, Coming to America, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Die Hard, all coming out around the same time. So it was not going to help the movie that it was being spliced in with all these other competition. Not to mention the film also, that trailer, it feels like a National Lampoon's Vacation sequel, and I wouldn't be. It's funny because that music was actually later used for the Christmas Vacation trailer, if I'm not mistaken. But so you think this movie was not a good film overall? But I mean, it's fine. I just don't think it's one of Chevy Chase's better movies. I think it is one of those movies where there are some good laugh out loud moments in there, but the story is very generic, and you can tell there's a little bit too much of the Money Pit mixed in with Vacation in there. It doesn't really do anything to kind of distance itself from the Vacation movies. Like, you can still feel like that if you would replace Madeline Smith with Beverly D'Angelo, this will be another Vacation movie. Just bring in the Griswold kids, bring in Cousin Eddie, and it's pretty much the same type of a story. And that did kind of hurt it in the long run, but it's not a bad movie per se. I think it is still funny, but it's never to the point where I would say it's one you should definitely check out. But give it this, though. It's at least better than Chevy Chase's other comedy that came out in the summer of '88, Caddyshack 2. But then again, anything's better than Caddyshack 2 the more you think about it. But yeah, not much more to say about that one. So that's Funny Farm. Let's go ahead and take a look at the last one we have here, and that is The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years.
Alice Cooper, Aerosmith. Kiss. This movie is about groups, metal, guitars, girls.
Ozzy Osbourne and Poison, the megastars and the rising stars of metal.
I'm going to be a rock star.
So I want to be a rock star.
I'm going to be a rock star.
Good luck to us, I pretty wish I would.
To be a rock and roll star is the greatest thing in the world.
Then you got things like divorces, management rip-offs, fatigue, drugs.
Rock and roll. Why do they do it?
I'm in it for the money. A headbanger is someone who drives by in their car and goes,
Melody! How do they make a living?
I'm a professional musician. I don't work. I can't stand it.
We don't work. We play music.
We are not role models for your life. And why do they get all the girls?
Because they have good music and good and good looking.
And what about the groupies?
I like to call them the fleas and tips of rock and roll.
But what do they really want to be?
I would say happy.
I'm a happy camper.
The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years.
So this is actually part of a series of documentaries directed by the director of Wayne's World, Penelope Spears, where she takes a look at the various eras of music. There was one, the first one that came out in 1981, which basically took a look at, I just saw it a second ago, but it took a look at the LA punk rock scene. And then you have this movie here where it's basically depicting life in Los Angeles at various points in time through the eyes of struggling up-and-coming musicians. And you see in the trailer there a mix of various people such as Alice Cooper, Ozzy Osbourne, Poison, Aerosmith, Kiss, Motorhead, Megadeth, Lizzie Borden, Faster Pussycat, London, Odin. I mean, a lot of notable names in here in particular, but I've actually never seen any of these movies, and I don't know. I don't know what the lasting legacy of them are really, but I will say though that this does have a pristine looking Shout Factory, at least from the looks of what I saw there, and yeah, it's got a lot of great music on there, a lot of great music of the era, and it makes a lot of sense now why Wayne's World had so many different had so many different punk, rock stars at the time in those movies, because the director knows these people all too well from the two movies that she's done, and yeah, I mean, I can see the appeal of this movie. Even if you're not a big hardcore punk rock person or a rock and roll person in general, you can still find a lot to see in this type of a film here. From the little bits and pieces that I've seen from it, I've actually never seen these, so I can't really say how good they are, but they must be good enough to have 3 movies based off of them, where the third one basically looks at the gutter punk lifestyle of homeless teenagers in the late 1990s, and I'm actually looking to see about this one here. That one actually has people like Black Flag, the Wet Hot Chili Peppers. So I don't know. I've never seen any of these to really know for certain how good they are. They must be good if they keep making sequels every couple of years, kind of like the heavy metal version of something like the Up series, where the filmmakers have these 7 kids and they go to these different kids and they go to them every 7 years to see how they're doing and all that. Maybe it's that kind of thing here, but again, not really certain for sure how the movie is because I've never seen them, so they're probably pretty good. I mean, if Shout Factory's giving them a pristine release like that, it's probably worth it. So, not much more to say about that one. That's The Decline of Western Civilization. Toy boat. The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years. So with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies Flashback. We'll flash back to Memorial Day weekend 1988 with 2 big sequels. The big sequels that were supposed to start the summer 88 season. Paul Hogan returning as Crocodile Dundee in Crocodile Dundee 2. And Sylvester Stallone returning as John Rambo in Rambo 3. So we'll take a look at both of those movies next time. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. So until then, as always, take care.